Right, okay, great. So good afternoon, everybody. Tuesday afternoon, 2 p.m. and it's question time with the Party Wal guy. My name's Dil Gujral. I'm the Chief Surveyor at 1996 Party Wal. We're specialist Party Wal surveyors. Thank you very much for joining us this Tuesday afternoon. Here's my connection details. We'll put those up right at the end as well. Got a really great question this afternoon. My pleasure to go through it with you. Just a quick dose of housekeeping before we start. Firstly, this is a Zoom webinar. It's not a call, so you won't be on view, and please send in your questions. Having said that, okay, we've got a question here, so I'm gonna promote Mr. Ranjit to panelist. I think that's his question. So let's bring on, let me get the screen on display. Right, there we go, sorry. So this is a Zoom webinar, not a standard Zoom call that everyone's getting used to nowadays. If the fire alarm goes, my exit's on this side. I don't know where yours is, but I'm sure you know yours. So make sure you know your fire exit, you know where you won't need a break. It's only half an hour, so we're going to run through this quite quick. On your phone, you will see the following options. So there's a mic there. We'd like to ask you a question in person if you want to volunteer. I'll come to that in a minute. But if you think of questions, type it in. We'll review those after we've gone through this initial question. So if you get an incoming call, your mic will cut off. It may not bring it back on, so what you might have to do is rejoin. Please mute while you're on the meeting, so it just stops background noise going on. If we lose internet connection, we've got a standby internet, so it'll take us a minute or so to boot up. So stay with us, and we'll be back to you. And if your Zoom loses Wi-Fi or internet connection, it will reconnect automatically. So don't worry about that. That should be fine. Yes, so all the recordings will end up on our YouTube channel. It's 1996 Party Wal. We're about 1 or 2 weeks behind, but the guys on the YouTube team are dealing with it. So these questions will end up, and you can go back and watch them again. And that's our channel, 1996 Party Wal on YouTube. There will be a little PDF, and I'll tell you how to get it. And it's very useful. It might be small in number of pages, but it's super useful. So please get that if you haven't got it already. Is my book. Don't buy it yet. It's being updated and revised. So, you know, the updates are being worked on. Hold on to your money. And questions. So if you think of questions, your questions will be there. Roughly. So type your question in, and once we cover our first question, I'll try and go through it if you have it. If not, we'll go through it the week after. So please keep your questions coming in. And if you've got any other issues, raise your hands. I'm just going to have a little quick check. Yeah, it's all good so far. So thank you for joining us. Let's have a look. So before I go into the questions, I'm going to go through why I undertake the Party Wal process to start with. So first of all, the main reason as a building owner, and I'll come through the terminologies later on, is it protects you from false and malicious claims. So there's a number of occasions we've gone into the building next door, done the survey, and we've looked around and seen a crack in the wall or the ceiling and thought, hang on a minute, have the guys next door already started work? Looked outside, nothing's going on. So had we not done that survey, you as a building owner would have got the blame for that. So it's there to protect you from false and malicious claims. The other issue that can occur is if you don't take the Party Wal process, your project ends up being stopped midstream. And the problem with that is if you've got builders and contractors on site, they'll end up costing you more money. So avoid doing that. And it might seem painful because everybody wants to go as soon as they get a project. But please get through the Party Wal process. It's something very important. in the end, as a building owner, it is your responsibility. It's one of these strict laws that's in law. So it's a bit like health and safety. It's your responsibility as the owner of the building, the project. It's not your architect's responsibility. It's not your project managers. It's not the builders. So you can't say, I told these guys they didn't do it. Strictly your responsibility as a building owner. You could end up in legal action if you haven't done the Party Wal process. And trust me, if you think Party Wal issues take time or expensive, you do not want to try legal action and trying to resolve it once it goes there. It's not a good place to be in. And finally, least but not last, and the most important reason, it is the law. It's definitely the law. I keep getting asked this. 110% is the law. So you need to comply with it. And as with any law, ignorance is not a defense. So on to our question for the week. Really interesting question. I've been having this popping up a few times, so I thought I'll deal with it this week. We're talking about air rights. Now, air rights is how Mr. Trump made his money. And they also apply in the UK. It goes back to the Property Act 1925, where everything to the sky is owned by the property owner. We're not going to discuss the 1925 Property Act, but air rights are simply where you're able to build on top of an existing building. So let's have a look. This is the question we usually get asked. I bought a project. It's normally a flat development on top of a building. Do I need a Party Wal agreement? Let me make sure I see all of it. Do I need a Party Wal agreement with the flat below, the freeholder of my building, and the neighbors? So let's have a look at the issues involved. So the issues involved are, within your building, you'll need to get freeholders' consent. You'll also need to get scaffolding license, and sometimes, and this is a little bit loose here, but people feel that you need a Party Wal agreement with your freeholder. Actually, you don't, because if you can wrap 3 of these issues up into the Party Wal consent, that means all 3 are dealt with. So if you think about it, if you get your freeholders' consent to build your flat on top of your building, you can wrap up scaffolding licenses within that. So they'll give you a scaffolding license. You'll also ask them to consent under the Party Wal Act, because you can't have the situation where they're consenting on one hand as a freeholder and creating a dispute under the Party Wal Act, which is what you have to do to get a Party Wal award. So, and a number of times I've spoken to solicitors and said, look, you need to wrap all 3 up within the freeholder's consent. Very important to do that, because occasionally you'll get freeholders say, no, I'm going to give you consent, but I want a Party Wal agreement. And if they really persist with that, sometimes it's easier to do the Party Wal agreement. But ideally, you want to wrap these 3 up all in one go and negotiate it as part of your freeholder's consent. So that's a tip that can save you money and time and effort. So bear that in mind. Now, the 4th issue that comes about is Party Wal issues with adjoining owners. I'm going to discuss this at length a little bit, and hopefully I can cast some light. It's actually a very interesting subject. So let's have a look at a scenario 1. Now, let's pretend this flat's next door. This is a house, or it could be flats. There could be flat downstairs, flat upstairs. Again, next door flats or houses, doesn't matter. Now, the important point to note here is the works on this type of scheme are notifiable under Section 2.3, and the one issue to remember is Section 11.11, enclosure costs. I'll explain that as we go through. So let's assume this is the airspace we bought. This is our proposed project, and we're going to build a flat here. Now, because there's nothing next to us in the roof space, this is the adjoining owner of the building next door. Now, it could be that you've got a freeholder. These could be flats or a house. Either way, if you've got nothing in the roof space, no flat in the roof space next to you, there's only one notifiable owner there, and that's the freeholder. So let's have a look at a slightly different scenario, which is where we've got, again, this project will be notifiable under section 2 and 3, 2/3, and we're going to look at section 11 issues as well. So that's our project here. Now, that's what we're going to propose to build our flat. And if we have a look carefully on the right-hand side here, we've got a building, again, could be flats and so on, but because there's no leaseholder next to us, it's only the freeholder that's notifiable on this side. On the other side, you've got a block of flats, for example. So although you don't have walls spanning across it, it's just a way of showing the differences in flats. So you've got Mr. Green, Mr. and Mrs. Green here, Mr. and Mrs. Blue here, and Mr. Red here. So they're all separate flat owners. Notifiable adjoining owners here, you've got the freeholder outlined by the red, and you've also got the leaseholder here that's notifiable. So in this scenario, you've got the freeholder here, the leaseholder here, and the freeholder on the other side. So in this scenario, we've got 3 adjoining owners. Okay, let's have a look at this scenario now. This isn't an exact illustration. Usually you have what we call a manside roof here. And this is where section 11.11 enclosure cost becomes really, really in play. So usually you'd have actually a wall here separating rather than a stud partition, and probably a wall here. Let's take this scenario. So, and this is the project you bought, this is your proposed project. So basically you'll see it in town sometimes. You have flats rising up, there's party walls rising up, flat on the right hand side, flat on the left hand side, and just a project in the middle waiting to be converted. So in this scenario, you'll have the freeholders on the left hand side as notifiable. You'll also have the leasehold owners there. On the right hand side, you'll have the leasehold owners of the flat next door notifiable. And there's also leasehold owners as specified by the yellow box, and freehold owners on the right hand side. Again, both of those, you've got 4 owners in this scenario notifiable. And this is where section 11.11 will come into play. So if we've got a case where the wall's already existing and you're not having to build a new wall, if that's been built by or raised by the owners next door, because you're going to make use of it, it's only fair that you make a contribution towards the cost of that wall. So I'm going to explain section 11.11 costs in a minute and how it operates. It can apply to both flats where you're enclosing or making use of, where you're making use of a raised party wall, or it can apply at a ground level where you're using a flank wall of an extension and making use of that. So again, the Act is written in sections rather than projects, so that's why we have to translate this across. So those are the basic 3 scenarios, and you will get a hybrid of these going along, but these 3 cover it. So looking at slightly more depth, basic terms of the Party Wal Act. You have a building owner. Now these are this is the owner who wants to do the project. So it could be a corporate owner. So you could buy your project in a limited company, SPV, and so on. And which means that you're still that entity is still a building owner. Next door, you have your adjoining owners, and you can have multiple adjoining owners. So in the previous example where we had left and right, you could have freeholders. There's usually 1 per building, and each of those are notifiable in their own rights. Within a building, you could also have leaseholders. Now, this has got to be leaseholders of more than 1 year. So AST tenants don't count on this. They're not notifiable. You also have a group of people that have rights to receive profits. So these could be if a trust has right to receive profit, or someone who's done a purchase lease option, and all these other groups, probably even a rent to rent in this scenario, although they would come under a leasehold owner. Got a really interesting question last week, and I'm going to discuss this as a future scenario as well, where someone's just buying buying a place, or the neighbours have exchanged, they also become notifiable owners. I've gone through this in the past, and I'm going to do a session entirely on this. So excluded guys are short held tenants, council tenants, and mortgage companies. You don't need to worry about those guys as adjoining owners. Okay, quick run through the Party Wal process. So stage one is started by the building owner, who send out a notice, and this is not a Party Wal agreement. Please stop calling it a Party Wal agreement. You know, it's simply a notice which starts the process off. And the reasons for starting the process, as I went through in the beginning, it's there to protect you as a building owner. So it's got a dual, the Party Wal Act has a dual function, protecting the building owners and also looking after the adjoining owners' interests. So making sure both parties are protected. Stage two is decided by the adjoining owner. Now this is, here they can choose a number of options, and if they're good to you, they'll choose a schedule of condition, which is a photographic survey of the building as it currently exists. Almost like renting a car, whereby we go and take photographs of the property, and it's there to stop you getting accusations of false and malicious claims, predominantly existing damages if it's already there. You know, you might get blamed for it, and it becomes really interesting how, when we've done surveys, they suddenly start, you know, when there's building works, everybody suddenly focuses on the ceilings, their walls, and trying to find little cracks that they're oblivious to before, and they've not noticed it before. So be aware of that. The second option is they can ask for a Party Wal agreement. This is actually called a Party Wal award, but the term can be used as a Party Wal agreement. It's a legal document with rights and responsibilities. There's two options on how they ask for an award. They can ask for to use your surveyor, that's an agreed surveyor, or they can appoint their own surveyor, which is the worst option, but you know, for you as a building owner, for us doing the surveys, but it's all dependent upon how they feel. So you could have a scenario where you have two owners, two surveyors. We've discussed this before, and we'll discuss it at some future point as well. So that's stage two of the process. Within the award, we'll also have rights and responsibilities of each party. So the building owner has the right to do the works. The adjoining owner has rights to protect their property. We'll also talk about working time and how it's largely covering the time and manner in which the works are executed. So the idea is, can we put in method statements in there to avoid any damage that could possibly occur? Okay, so as with the examples earlier, I talked about section 2 and 3. And most airspace buildings are built in terms of very similar to format to doing a loft conversion. So this is why I've used the loft conversion example. The process is very similar. Common factors that we have are, you're going to put, let's have a look. You're going to insert steels on the ground floor, and that's to give your story as separation and meet sound reg, so the noise isn't transmitted downstairs. So usually you're going to put steels in there, and that's to give you floor separation. That's notifiable under section 22F, which is a 2-month notice period. And in this example, this is the adjoining owner. The other type of notice we have to give, and this is all within section 2, so it all goes in one notice, is you're going to end up inserting a flashing to make sure that the Party Wal is waterproofed, and there you're notifying them under 22J, and that's in the interest of both parties. Again, section 3 notice, 2-month period, but it can be decreased by the adjoining owner's consent. You know, if they say, well, okay, we've done the formalities, we've done the award, there's no reason why you can't start. Another common factor is, so usually you'll see some sort of plaster there, and you can remove that, and it could go through the entire house. So again, no difference there. It's notifiable, and this, it's usually a good idea to include this in a section 2.2 notice, because you don't really want your works being stopped further midstream. in case you discover that you want to get rid of some plaster and freshen up your project. Again, can be decreased by agreement. And so when you're getting rid of the roof, you can be exposing existing walls to weatherproofing. So you may need to serve this weatherproofing notice. Now, the third thing occasionally that happens is you're raising a party wall. So where you build a party wall that's not already existing, you're actually raising a party wall. And now this can have problems where it comes to council and planning permission. So you have a legal right to raise the party wall. It comes under your curtilage. Now, not all planners understand the law exactly. So if you've got an issue going on here, drop me a little email or a note and I'll send you the case law. But you are allowed to raise the party wall, the whole of the party wall, not just half of where that belongs in your boundary. So we could have a scenario here where the wall is already raised and you're going to make use of it. And this is where section 1111 would come into play. So you can either raise the party wall. If it's already raised and it's been raised by the building owner next door who's raised it under a previous project, you would have to pay, make use of costs. So there you go, raise the party wall, allowed to do so by law, as discussed before. So section 1111 costs. Now, that's basically to create some fairness between the two parties. So if, for example, in this scenario, these guys have already raised the party wall, you're not going to have to raise it, you're just going to make use of it. That means that you have to pay them you're going to have to pay a contribution towards the cost of that. Now that's calculated on square footage area that you're enclosing. And I'll do a scenario on this one day in a question time where we look at, it's just the extra element that you're enclosing. And it's half of that cost, and it's based on at the time of enclosing, not the time of when they build it. It's at the time of enclosure. I'm just looking to see if we've got any more questions coming in. It's at the time of enclosure, and it's calculated on a per square meter basis. You can agree whatever you like with the owners, but if you can't agree, the surveyors will resort to using the Act, and part of the Act that's notified by there is section 1111. Sorry, part of the Act that comes into place, section 1111. So, and it's at the time of the works, not when it's built, and it's to the owners who currently own it. There's quite a famous case law on that element. So just a basic outline while we've got a few minutes on there. If you've got any questions, please send them in. I'm just going to have a quick check if we've had any more questions in. So no questions at the moment, but please keep them coming in. So I'm just going to do a quick run through of the basics. And one of the most important things I'm noticing at the moment is there's a tendency for everyone to put their planning application in and then start the party wall process, which means you're spending about 8 weeks, 2 months on your planning process, and then you're starting a party wall process, which could actually even take longer than 2 months, depending on your complexity of your project, which means this is where you're starting a build project. So there's a slightly better way of doing this, and this applies mainly to when you're doing stuff under PD. So if you're doing a project under PD, rear extension, loft conversion, so on and so forth, this is a slightly better scenario of doing this, and it'll get you better results. So as soon as you've got an idea of your project, your architect's created some PD, some draft drawings, you know, they may not have worked out where the kitchen's going, the window's going, but they've got an overall shell. We can get an idea of if that project is going to be notifiable under the Party Wal Act. We can start the party wall process. So basically you kick it off on the initial drawings, you let the party wall process run, and then once you've created your final drafts or you're happy with them, then you can put your planning in. Now, this does a couple of things. It starts the party wall process, which can start to run while you're finishing your drawings, and then hopefully it'll be completed before the planning process is completed, so that at that point you're ready to build. Now, the other thing this does is, as soon as planning application gets submitted to the building local council, your neighbors start getting letters from marketing letters from other surveyors who basically touting for business, and some are great and some are informational, some are quite scary, and they scare your neighbors into saying, whoa, something's going on next door, the building works, they haven't given you a party wall notice, appoint us, we can get it done for you. And the way that costing works, and I'll run through it again, but it's in one of our training videos on our YouTube channel. You'll end up paying for their surveyor's fees. So if you can get in before the planning is submitted and give your neighbor a notice and a copy of the notice, this improves your chances. It's no guarantee, but it'll improve your chances of getting either an agreed surveyor or a schedule of condition, which saves you extra costs. So please focus on this area. I haven't had any more questions, so keep the questions coming in via email, LinkedIn, however you want to do it. Hopefully you found this interesting, and I've been wanting to do it for weeks in terms of the issues involved in air rights and projects going on. We're coming to, I think in the future there's a lot more of air rights developments that are going to be going on. So hopefully you found it useful. That's basically the end of this this little question time. There is a little gift. This is there's a booklet by the government. This is it, and at the back you'll notice there's details of the Faculty of Party Wall Surveyors, and that's the professional organisation we belong to. So we're members of the Faculty of Party Wall Surveyors. We specialise in doing party walls, but although this is a very good booklet, it's written by a couple of friends of mine, so I can't say too many bad things about it. It was written in 2002, and so there's issues that are being handled better now, and that's what we try to do. We've created a little booklet template here. It's a PDF. You can download it if you connect to me in LinkedIn. I'm trying to work out how we get it on YouTube as well, so that's going to come in. But if you can't get it, send me an email. I'm more than happy to send it to you. And it goes through the process of how you do it step by step. And we're still getting inquiries, and people are doing it wrong. They're serving notices. The notices are actually in there, and an important part there is the 10-4 process. I'll run through it at a future point as well. So that's the end of the formal session, and just in time, would like to bring on one of our sponsors, Mr. Ranjit Singh, who's here. So let me see if I can unmute him. Oh, sorry, Ranjit, you've got to unmute yourself. Excellent. So if we can have a couple of words. Thank you for sponsoring us, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dil. Can you hear me?
Perfectly. Thank you very much.
Okay. My name is Ranjit from Property Investor News. We've been publishing this magazine for the last 18 years. Our June issue is the 200th issue, which is coming out next week. Why subscribe to Property Investor News? Simply become educated, knowledgeable, and informed investors. Our publication provides you analysis, news, research on property investments. Also updates on mortgages, finance, auction, legal matters, and much, much more. Subscribe to Property Investor News today. Receive 3 issues of the magazine, and also a book written by 2 auction experts, which is also free. To subscribe, just follow the instructions on the slide before you. Remember, businesses don't fail, people who run them fail. Be educated, be knowledgeable, and be informed. Back to you, Dil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ranjit, for sponsoring us, and a really great magazine, definitely worth getting. And I think if you subscribe now, you'll still get the COVID special edition. So thank you for that little message. Really good to see you again. One of our other sponsors is Ren Kitchens. Unfortunately, Sanj couldn't be here today, but here's his details. If you're doing plans for rear extensions, get in contact with Sanjay and he'll do your nice little drawing kitchen, which you can include in, which you can be really cheeky and include in your rear extension and make yourself look like a hero. So brilliant. Thank you very much for being here. Next week, I've got a really interesting question time. I'm working on bringing on a guest, and it's a question that I got emailed on Monday, and I found it so interesting I had to do some investigation into it. So please join me next week. Super interesting subject. And once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Dil.
Thank you very much, sir.